Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rihanna, and welcome back to Fresh Off the Broke.
Fresh Off the Broke is about personal experiences growing up Asian American in a predominantly white community, Asian media, and Asian pop culture in general. Race has always been a sensitive topic. Every day there are debates over race. With our podcast, we intend to shed light on the experiences of first-generation Asian immigrants, not put them on a pedestal.
We understand that race isn't everything, but there should be an acknowledgement of people of color, the knowledge gap, and the racial divide that will ideally be broken. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Today we're going to be discussing first times.
Now, do you want to elaborate a little bit more about what we mean by first times?
So, first times, I guess, is just pretty self-explanatory, but not in the way that you're thinking. More like the first time that we've experienced racism, stuff like that.
Well, speaking of first times and start, it's 2021.
Finally.
The new year is here. And we wish you a happy new year.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like a happy Western New Year, since it's not New Year's yet for certain cultures.
Very true. Hopefully, this year will be a lot better than last year.
Yeah. I saw this, I don't know if it was a drawing or if it was like an edit, but someone had 2020 and then over the zero there was a vertical band-aid, so it was like one.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy though if you think about what happened or just like the rate at which everything happened. Because it was every week there was something new that wasn't like new in a good way happening.
Yeah.
Things kept escalating.
It just didn't stop.
Yeah. It hasn't exactly stopped now, but we're working on it, you know?
Yeah. Like, I swear people are acting like COVID is gonna go away as soon as the clock strikes 12.
That's true.
Which it's not. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
But, I think it's more it's supposed to symbolize a new beginning, you know? Not that it's all gonna go away.
Yeah, not the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One more thing before we move on. During the winter break, I saw a lot of people going on trips or vacation, which, I mean...
Where?
It's not like planes aren't allowed to fly.
Unfortunately.
But can you be a little bit more considerate?
Yeah.
You know?
It's very annoying.
Yeah, it's part of Western culture and the personal freedom. Because people think, oh, well, I want a vacation, and they didn't exactly ban me from doing so I'm gonna go fly around, only wear a mask when someone's watching, and then break all rules when no one's looking.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest problems in North America is like, well, the government can't control me because I have my own free will. People are very selfish here, basically.
The amount of protests about wearing masks.
Stupid, man.
Yeah.
Like, especially at work, technically, like, you would think that if someone isn't wearing a mask, we have the choice whether or not we want to help them or not, right? But no, we can't do anything. If they don't wear a mask, we can't say anything.
Oh, I thought mask wearing was similar to no shoes, no shirt, no service kind of policy.
See, it is, but like if we say, excuse me, sir or ma'am or whatever, do you have a mask? And they say, no, I have a medical condition. You can't say anything else. Like, you can just be like, okay, that's, like, they could say anything, and we'd have to be like, okay, whatever.
That sucks.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, from what I've heard, there's no, like, medical condition where you're, like, a mask would be detrimental to your breathing. Also, we've been like this for a year, so if you don't have a mask, you're just dumb.
Well, actually, I think there are certain conditions that stop people from wearing a mask, but a lot of the people that are saying that they can't wear a mask are probably the ones like lying about it.
Yeah.
Because usually, if someone has a condition where they can't wear a mask, they would probably feel a little awkward about it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be like a Karen. It's like, I can't wear a mask because.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, also I feel like people who do have medical conditions like that are the ones who go out of their way to get like a mask that fits their needs, but also covers their mouth and nose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I've seen so many things on like social media of people being like, so I have this medical condition, and even though technically like I can still wear a mask, it's still uncomfortable. So watch me make a mask that is functional, but also like works for me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people who just come in the store and get mad when you ask if they have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird how mask wearing has become so political.
Yeah. And also, like, my workplace is, let's just say that it's not the best in terms of, like, okay, let's just say part 2. The people who are, like, the management isn't they're very lenient on mask wearing also because they don't like it either.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's just say I go to a bad place of work.
I like how you're not name dropping.
I'm not, because the people there are nice, but you know, sometimes behind the scenes, I see some stuff. That's what I'm saying. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you still gotta make your coin.
Yeah, someone gotta make some money somehow, so.
Well, speaking of opposition and stuff like that, do you want to get into our first topic?
Sure. So our first topic is the first time that we've experienced any sort of racism. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I've mentioned this several times on podcasts. I'm going to try to make this less redundant. So, as you know, I grew up in a very white neighborhood. Most of the schools I went to were and are still very white. And so I would say my first time experiencing racism started right in kindergarten with my kindergarten teacher. And gosh, she was already, looking back, you could probably tell that she was racist, if you know what I mean, because it's one of those older white ladies,
Yeah, I know.
And right from the beginning, she was very hostile to me and not very nice, like at all, which you're a kindergarten teacher. I thought, kindergarten teachers were supposed to be patient and kind and like children. Well, maybe she didn't like children, but not my kind of children. Anyway, so it's since growing up, I did not speak English as my first language. I spoke Cantonese at home. When I got to kindergarten, that was my first time speaking English for prolonged amounts of time, and also speaking English in general, because usually when I was at home before kindergarten, my exposure to English was television.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when she would tell us things, tell us to go to a certain station in the classroom or just to go do something, maybe I would be a little more slow or I would respond quicker than she wanted me to. I remember there was this one time we were supposed to do this maybe in attendance order or just in like a list order. stay where we wanted to go for, I think it was free time or something, and I answered early because I didn't understand the instructions, and she got really mad at me. Which, okay, granted, yes, I interrupted the order, and two, from her perspective, it was probably rude, but she definitely knew and also should have known why, because it wasn't a situation where she didn't know that English wasn't my first language and she didn't know that I had these struggles. She just chose to attack me for it all the time, and I don't know, when you have a middle-aged woman attacking a 4-year-old, it doesn't look very good, you know?
Yeah.
And I personally think it's pretty low for someone to be like that. I mean, why are you picking a fight with a 4-year-old? And so she would constantly put me in timeouts. I remember one time when we were cleaning up after free time, I didn't realize that it was over, and so I was still using like a hole punch or something, and she got really mad at me and put me in timeout for I don't know how long, because kids process time differently, but it was a while.
That's so mean.
She would also single me out. So, I mean, putting someone in timeout obviously puts them at the center of attention, or at least will draw attention. But I was in timeout, and then she was doing a lesson, or whatever you would call a lesson in kindergarten. And it was like, oh, Tiffany's in timeout because she wasn't listening. Don't be like Tiffany. Anyways, let's get on with our lesson. I was like, okay, that's cool. That did great things to me as a child. And then the biggest defining racist moment would be during our parent-teacher interviews. There's actually a funny part about this, but we had a teacher assistant who, her last name was Japanese, but she could speak Chinese. I don't remember much / know much about her background. She could have been half Chinese, half Japanese. Maybe she was Chinese and then married a Japanese person, or is Japanese, grew up in China. I don't know. But she served as a translator during our parent-teacher interviews because I was too young to be the translator. Fast forward 2 years, I ended up being the translator. Not important. But she literally had that teacher assistant say to my parents that they should stop speaking Cantonese to me.
Oh my god.
Because it distracted or affected my English learning. But here's the thing. If you can't even tell my parents that directly in English, how do you expect? It was already very frustrating when I was a child, but looking back, it just feels so dumb, for lack of better word.
Well, yes.
You, an English speaker, he only knew one language, by the way. Telling our teacher assistant that had to translate English to Cantonese to my parents, who only knew Cantonese, to stop speaking the only language they knew how to speak to communicate with to me. Communicate with. Hang on. What is this? I'm having a grammar moment. Anyway, the only language that they were using to communicate with me at the moment, / the only one that they could, at least with me, to stop using it.
Yeah.
And use a language they just don't know.
Big brain moment on her behalf.
What were you thinking?
That's just the fact that there needed to be a translator there is just nice. Really gets the point across.
Yeah, and the thing is, if that teacher assistant wasn't there, they definitely wouldn't have gotten a translator, and it would have been my parents and I would be sitting there, and then that teacher would be saying whatever complaints about me to my parents. My parents wouldn't understand, and it would be that type of frustration. You know when white people, or just generally English speakers, they're in a foreign country, or they're speaking to someone that doesn't know English, and they speak louder or slower because they
Yeah.
think that's gonna make a difference.
The worst
I
way.
want the water.
Yeah.
Because you're saying it louder or slower doesn't.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's gonna help.
Yeah. Gosh.
It's because I think I've never thought of this, but it's probably like because I don't know, I don't do that, or people in the Philippines, well, that I know, don't do that like in Tagalog to me when I don't understand. I think it's just mostly because like English people really just assume that English is, recognizable by the whole world.
Mhm. Mhm.
It just goes with the whole English is the superior language
Yeah.
mentality that's so subtly engraved into anybody,
Mhm. I know we've mentioned this a lot, but I genuinely despise the fact that English is supposed to be the number one international language, the language of the successful.
Yeah, stupid.
Screw you.
Just pick the worst sounding language and you're good to go,
And also, the U.S. There's been multiple studies on this. The U.S. They're the most mono. Oh shoot, what is it called? Monolingual country.
Yep.
Because everyone, I mean, yeah, Canada speaks English. I mean, I know they say it's a bilingual country, but really, people learn English in middle school and high school. I'm not English, French in middle school and high school, and they never have to use it again unless they're going into a French-speaking job or they work in Quebec, because Quebec is very disconnected from the rest of Canada.
But also, like, when you go to Quebec or like Montreal and you try to speak, because when you're in French class and the teachers are like, oh, now whenever you visit, you'll be able to communicate with them. Mm-hmm. As soon as you speak a little bit of French and you don't sound like French is your native language, they just switch to English automatically.
Yeah. This is from my experience. I obviously not all Quebecois are rude, but from my experience, I've never encountered a non-elitist Quebecois person. Emphasis on the Quebecois.
Yeah.
Because they only like to be referred to as that. And if we have any Quebecois listeners, thank you for your support. No hate to you.
Yeah, no
I've
hate.
clearly have not had the best experiences with them, and that is not representative of everyone in the province.
It's just certain experiences.
Well, that's my first racist experience in school. Well, as a child. What about you?
To be honest, I don't have like a specific moment that I vividly remember as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I just mostly, okay. Also, I've also said this a million times, but I grew up in a pretty immigrant-filled neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's like, okay, not to stereotype, and oh my god, my dad really just started vacuuming.
He did?
Yeah, can you hear it? Hopefully not. But my god, he really just did that. Okay, not to generalize, but like immigrant neighborhoods are generally more lower class in where we live.
Okay.
And I live in a pretty like lower class neighborhood. Oh, a funny story. Oh my god, I'm getting distracted. But yeah, I live in a lower-ish class neighborhood, so it's filled with a lot of immigrant kids. And for my first couple years in school, I was surrounded by a lot of Filipino kids.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I did experience was like Asian on Asian racism. Because kids would be like, you don't look Filipino, you look Chinese. And I'd be like, okay, but I am Filipino, So if anything, I would get like made fun of for being East Asian, which I'm not. I'd get made fun of for being East Asian by South Asian kids. Because in my next couple years in school, South Asian kids were the majority.
Mm-hmm. You know, Asian on Asian racism isn't something that a lot of people talk about, but it's a very real thing.
Oh yeah, and like, it's really annoying because it's like we're really gonna pick fights when we're in the same boat right now. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. I've never understood when people try to have a whole pain hierarchy or comparing my struggles to your struggles. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to do the math, you could say that so and so had a harder life than so and so, but that's not the point, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you and I did a whole comparison, it's really complicated because you and I grew up in very different neighborhoods.
Exactly.
You faced racism. It was a different type of racism versus my racism, you know? And
yeah.
They're both valid. Well, not racism, but our experiences are valid.
Yeah.
Racists are not valid. Sorry, not sorry. Put that on a t-shirt.
Oh my god. But yeah, that's my story. I don't really have a specific time that I remember being, someone being racist to me. It was more that like small little things would happen at school, or like little comments, or just being mocked for being Asian, and I'm just sitting here.
Yeah. Sorry?
No, that's it.
I have a small tangent in regards to racism at school. In terms of student-on-student racism, I remember in elementary school, I was talking to this guy in Cantonese. He knew Cantonese, by the way. I wasn't just speaking to him in Cantonese. Imagine. Like, hi, just... And this girl, she was a year younger than us. She was like the little sibling of a girl in my grade. She came up to us and started being very offended and angry, saying that we should stop. And we were confused. And she was like, "Stop speaking in your language. Why are you speaking in your language? That's not allowed." And we responded, "What do you mean? What do you mean it's not allowed? That's not a rule." and she shouted, or I don't know, about how we're at school, we're in Canada. Your typical. Okay. I wouldn't say Karen, but your typical, very basic racist encounter. That was probably the most prominent, or, well, I guess most prominent in terms of at an early age, student-on-student racism moment I had. Because she was I know she was only 1 year younger, but, it speaks to the way, like, parents raise their children. Because obviously, not everything you learn is from your parents. It's also from your environment as well. But where is this hatred coming from?
That's
because, I don't know. It makes me sad sometimes when I see very prejudiced kids, because I know that it's not necessarily their fault or their doing. Which is a whole other thing that I don't have the credentials to speak on, because we're not about to do like psychoanalyzing or armchair psychology. But yeah, that was my little tangent.
Yeah. It's sad when you see little kids like that, because it's like, you are a blank slate. You didn't come up with these ideas.
I just remembered something.
What?
Remember the kid on the React channel, the homophobic one?
Oh yeah, and then he is like, yeah.
Yeah, he was saying, well, he didn't know any better. He also didn't understand. But he was saying how he didn't like gay people, and they asked why, and he said he didn't know. And then later, when was it James Charles?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he was like a huge fan of James Charles, and he's really into K-pop. Not that K-pop is equivalent to a certain sexuality, but he was a lot more open-minded.
Yeah. He was like, didn't they give him like a makeup palette from James Charles? Isn't that what they did?
Yeah, I think
Like
so.
super excited.
I think so. Yeah. Character
Yeah.
development.
It really just goes to show like kids don't know what they're saying. They're just regurgitating what they hear.
Yeah, kids don't know racism or transphobia, which is like a beautiful but also sad thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have another first times you want to share?
In regards to racism?
No, just like a first time.
Oh. Oh God, do I want to say this story? I guess, okay. I guess this is mostly just it's a 2-in-1.
Okay.
This is the first time, okay, no, it's not the first time that my parents said this to me, or one of my parents said this to me, but it's one of the very few times, and also the first time I cried in front of my friends. But also, actually a 3-in-1, because it's like the first time I realized how, like, stark the difference is between, like, my mindset and my friend's mindset, I guess. So, okay, just to very quickly, I'm going to explain the background. So I have birds, as you might have heard in these episodes. And let's just say one of my birds got injured, and at nighttime. So basically the whole night I was crying over my bird because I cry very easily, and also my birds are very dear to me, even though I hate when they make noise. But yeah, so my bird got injured. I was helping her like get comfortable and just basically being with her for the whole night. And I had school the next day. So it was something with her foot. So by the next morning, her foot was kind of back to normal. And so, like, while she was in her little cage, because we had to isolate her by herself in a smaller cage, I was checking, like, her foot the next morning, and my dad was like, oh, her foot looks so much better now. I'm proud of you, right? So obviously I was like, the P word, you know? He said it.
The forbidden P word.
Yeah. But, so I had to go to school, and I was already, like, I was so just mentally unstable because anytime something happens to my birds, my immediate reaction is to cry because they've just been with me since I was a child. So, like, and I'm very bad with change anyways. So I go to school and I was fine. But then I told my friends the story, right? Of how stressed I was about my bird. But then, so I was sitting in the hallway during lunch with my friends, and I was telling them, like, I was like, I'm probably gonna cry because, you know, when you just aren't having it, and you just need to cry to let it all out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was telling them the story, and then I thought I was gonna cry when I was talking about my bird and how she got hurt, but then I started crying when I said that my dad said he was proud of me, right? And, like, I was like, it was so dramatic, like, my voice cracked on the proud word, and like, I started crying, and I had to, like, pause, just because it's something that I don't hear often, right? Yeah. And my friends, like, you know when, like, you're in a group of 3, and then you and your other friend are like, oh my god, the third friend is, like, crazy, and you share that look of, like, what is going on. Yeah, I saw them give each other that look. It was so bad. It was so awkward. And that was the first time they saw me cry. So 1, they had no idea what to do. And 2, they were like, this girl really is crying over someone saying that they're proud of her. And, like, I think afterwards, one of my friends was like, Rihanna, I'm gonna just say that I'm proud of you all the time. And I'm like, 1, do you want me to cry every time? And, like, 2, why are you laughing?
Wait, they were laughing?
Well, like they were like, "Oh, we're gonna say we're proud of you all the time now, like as a joke," and I'm like, "You really think that it's funny to me if I'm crying over this?" Like, yeah, it is funny, but at the same time, it's um kind of a weird thing to make fun of someone for, you know?
Yeah, I guess they were in their own way trying to lighten the mood.
Yeah. It just like
Sorry?
it just goes to show like how different mindsets work, you know?
I remember when you told me this story. It was
Yeah.
funny because I got the 2-in-1,
Yeah.
which was you talking about your dad and then you telling me about you telling them the story.
Yeah.
Like a whole package.
Yeah. Tiffany got the whole update in real time.
Yeah.
Then like after that happened, I was like, Tiffany, I'm never talking to anyone else ever again except for you. And then we made a podcast.
Even though we just laugh about
Yeah, basically.
I feel like it's different when we laugh about it though, because I know what you mean when you're laughing.
Yeah, it fully is different.
Uh-huh. I have a experience about crying over a pet, but it's not about the pet being sick or about my dad saying he was proud of me. It was actually I'll give a very brief tangent because it's slightly unrelated but slightly related. In middle school, I had a betta fish, and my dad, when he was, I wouldn't say when he was growing up because I don't think it was that early on, but he said that he used to also raise fish back in China when, chilling in the village.
Chilling in the village.
Yeah, rural China. I'm so sorry for the way I'm being Gen Z right now. I apologize. I will turn it off right now. So, he used to raise fish, and for some reason, when I had this betta fish, he would be very controlling, and he wouldn't let me change the water. He wouldn't really let me do much with the fish, except for have it in my room. And there was this one thing he was really adamant about that wasn't related to the fish at all, which was during the winter he would make me open my closet door because my closet doesn't have the insulation that my room has, like in between wall insulation. Mm-hmm. So there's moisture during the winter, and so he makes me open the door. But when you open the door, it's really cold, which isn't really that big of a problem for me because I can wear a sweater. But the thing is, that affected the fish, and I could tell that it affected a fish because a betta fish is a tropical fish.
Mhm.
And I told him that many times, and he wouldn't listen. And then one day the fish died.
Oh my gosh.
And I started crying because it was it was a moment of frustration.
Yeah.
And I apologize. This isn't a very good story. It doesn't have a very good ending or a happy ending. But basically, he was just like, okay. And then he, like, before I even had a chance to say goodbye. Sorry, I know I'm making this sound a little dark, but he basically threw it away.
I feel that.
And didn't apologize, which, I mean, honestly, if you don't want to apologize, you don't have to, because I'd rather he not apologize than give me a fourth apology that I know he doesn't mean.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I also had a crying over a pet moment. I don't have a pet anymore. The last time I had a fish was maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I decided not to raise them anymore.
Mm.
We still have fish though. My dad has taken to acquiring his own fish because then he has full control.
Fish acquired. Sorry.
He has acquired.
Yeah.
He acquired a fish company for $5 million. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
I wouldn't be here if it was like that.
That's funny that, okay, first of all, I didn't know that your closet also didn't have insulation because mine is the same thing.
Can we not have so many obscure things in
I
the
know,
home,
but
please?
also, even weirder, I used to have a betta fish, and also the same thing happened where some kid came over, like a family friend, and he dumped all of the food into the tank,
Oh
right?
my god.
And then when they left, I was like, Dad, you need to change the water because he's gonna die. And he goes, No, he's not. And he just left it because I was too young to like be able to change the water out of a fish tank without, flushing the fish down the sink. And
Mhm.
so my dad just was like, No, I'm not changing the water. And I was like, Okay, but this fish is gonna die. And so then in a week, the fish was just at the bottom of the tank not moving. And I was like, I think it's dead. And he goes, No, it's not. And he's like, He's just sleeping. And I'm like, This
Oh
fish
my
has been at the
god.
bottom of
When
the
they use
tank
that
for a
argument because
week.
the fish isn't floating on the top.
Yeah, exactly. But then, like, when we went to poke it from the bottom, it floated to the top. So, yeah,
The the way that we have all these obscure things in common. I mean, I know it's
hate
part
it.
of why we're friends, but can we not?
I know.
Mm. This is slightly unrelated, but fish, like dead fish, look very scary.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the horrifying way, but it's just because they're upside down and it's like
Like,
straight upside down.
yeah. And also, like, sometimes their color, like, is
I
dull.
was gonna say that.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God.
We apologize for the. I don't know if this is considered graphic imagery, but we apologize for the imagery.
Yeah. Do you have a first time parents being proud moment type story?
Honestly, I don't really, which is fine because I have grown to not care as much about my parents being proud, which is something I brought up in our Asian American Asian Immigrant Dream episode. Note the plug, episode 18. Stream it if you want to. And so I guess I can share something about that because it's not necessarily that my parents never said that they were proud of me, but the only time that they said something along those lines was when they were trying to, convince outside people that they sounds weird to say, but that they're like nice to me, if you know what I mean. You know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
some parents they will well, I mean, there's a lot of Asian parents that do this and parents that do this in general, where when they're hanging out with their friends or when they're just out with you and they talk about parenting and stuff like that, they try to make themselves seem like a better parent than they. Not to police the way that people parent their children, and also I'm not a professional on this, but when parents do that thing where they try to make themselves seem like they're kinder to their kids than they are,
Mhm.
and so I don't really have a moment where my parents would say, I'm really proud of you, or you know what, I don't say this often, blah blah blah. And I'm fine. I'm genuinely fine with that. I I know that a lot of first generation or immigrant children deal with this because, you know, it goes without saying, it's nice to be complimented, especially, by your parents, because, well, it's different from people to people, but it's like with celebrity, they have a lot of fans and they're grateful. Well, some of them aren't, but that's not the point of this. But it's when those certain people say that they're proud or they like something that they do that it really means something to them. And I thought, never mind.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything.
And I guess I kind of eliminated that block. It I can't say that I really read a book or like went to a self-help book recommendation. No, it was just, I would say, a slow burn of probably resentment, and then or maybe not acceptance, but just uh, being self-aware about the resentment, and then letting it go. That's the only way I can put it. I didn't really go on a big self-help journey. I didn't travel to another country to find myself, which, not the trash people that do that. I just don't have the luxury of doing that.
Period.
And even though I said that I've never read a book or anything like that to help me realize this, I do have 2 media recommendations for people that are still stuck in this that I discovered recently, just because I like the way that they worded it and told their story. I have there's a YouTuber that I mentioned in our Asians in Media or Lack Thereof. I'm pretty sure I mentioned them. A YouTuber called J. Lu. They are a Hong Kong-based YouTuber. She is Asian, and she's done 2 TED Talks, which, congratulations to her. That's very cool.
God damn.
And one of the TED Talks that she did was, I would say, based off of a old video, because I remember her mentioning this in a YouTube video before about not caring about parents being proud of her anymore. Hang on, let me get the title word for word. It was, "My parents don't say they're proud of me, and that's okay." And it's a 12 minute-ish TED Talk. It's really good, for lack of better words. And I think what she has to say is really relatable to a lot of people. And I don't know, I feel like it's one thing for you to realize something yourself, or for you to have a experience that, might be like heavier on the psyche or something, and then have someone else share a very similar experience, because it can be hard to validate your own struggles or trauma. Yeah. And it's nice to have someone to relate to on that. So I will link that in our description. My second media recommendation, you're probably already familiar with it when I say it, because we mentioned this in the Asian comedian episode, but Jimmy O Yang has a book called How to American Immigrant's Guide to Disappointing Your Parents, which, that's very fitting to what we were just saying. Mm-hmm. And he has a quote in that book that I just think is so powerful, and even though it seems like a really simple statement, sometimes it's the simple things that, go forgotten or unnoticed. And the quote was, "It's better to disappoint your parents for a couple of years than to disappoint yourself for the rest of your life."
Period.
And that's everything. It's true, because even personally, moments where I did something that my parents were maybe quote unquote proud or satisfied with, they still weren't really that satisfied, because, for example, hey, maybe I got second place instead of first place, or something along those lines. If someone won a regional competition but not a national competition, Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, no, you're never really gonna be 100% satisfied or 100% proud of yourself, because there's that block of, there's always something bigger, something better, and it's up to us to realize, introspect that, and cope with it in our own ways.
Mm-hmm. Wise words. God,
thank you. I try.
Well, I guess the last first time of this episode Yeah. I don't know why that made me laugh.
I feel like there was a quote that I read somewhere where it was something. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Something along the lines of that. Or when was the first time you did something for the last time? It was something wordplay-y like that.
Yeah. Well, insert that. But we're gonna talk about the first time that we met, / the first impressions that we had. Well, not really, because I don't really have I wasn't like, oh my god, who is this girl? You know, like nothing like that. Or for me at least. I don't know what you were gonna say.
Imagine I walk into the classroom, did a backflip. Who is that?
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Or well, maybe I should go first because you were just talking.
Sure.
I'll give you a break.
Take a breather.
Yeah. So the first time we met was in English class in grade 9. So what I remember, oh my gosh, I just remembered. Okay, so we had class, and I'm pretty sure it was after class or maybe before class. Tiffany came up to me, but before that, let me just say, so in grade 9, I was like desperate to like make at least one friend, because grade 9, you can go to the school, you don't know anyone, so I wore my NCT hoodie because back then I was like obsessed with K-pop. But yeah, so I wore my NCT hoodie, and like in that class, the teacher asked us like, what did you do in the summer? And so then one of our friends, our now friends, back then we weren't friends yet, but one of our friends said she went to a K-pop concert or something like that. And I was like, oh my god, I was gonna like not say anything like that, but for the sake of having mutual interest and making friends, I'm gonna say that I also went to a K-pop concert. This isn't Tiffany, by the way. But then after class, I was walking away, and I think Tiffany, like, you approached me and you're like, NCT? Like, question mark? And that was like our first interaction. That was it, right?
I feel like it was before class because I ended up sitting with you.
Oh, yeah. It was before class, on the way to class. Oh, yeah, because it was like the hallways were empty, and that was our first class that day. And we ended up sitting beside each other because we were like, hey, look at that. NCT.
Yeah, and then you, that now friend, and we exchanged like social media handles.
Yeah. And yeah, we were just the two Asian girls that sat next to each other in English class. Because our other friends didn't sit. Wait. Not all of the Asian girls sat together.
No, not all of them sat together.
It was us two that like consistently sat together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, did we ever had a seating switch? No, right?
I don't think so.
No. Yeah, our teacher didn't care about that.
But yeah, like I didn't have an impression of you. I was just like, hey, I just remember like seeing Asian people and being like, okay, I need to make friends with them because everyone in the school is white.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm scared of white people. Well, I'm not.
Can I read out your quote from our first episode about?
Sure.
Oh, look at that! This is kind of cute because we're not on our 100th episode, but we're here.
Yeah.
It's 20 episodes later. Okay, so it's from episode 1, the friendship dynamic, Asian versus non-Asian. And it was, the first thing I noticed about people in our class was, oh my god, that's an Asian girl. I can talk to her because in this environment, that's the closest thing I have to comfort.
Literally. Gosh.
I just realized that we plugged maybe 3-4 episodes in this episode. Okay. Feel free to stream those if you want to. You know?
Maybe not the first one though, because the first one's so awkward. We've come a long way,
Mhm.
luckily.
Well, it would be awful if we went the other way.
Yeah. But yeah, well, that was like our first meeting, right?
Mhm.
What was your impression of me besides, oh, this random girl likes NCT?
The thing is, my experience was pretty similar to yours. I didn't have like that much of an impression being like, oh, this person. You know how some friends they say that when they first met they thought they were really annoying or they didn't like them,
Oh my god,
and then
yeah.
over time they liked each other, ended up being friends. I didn't really have that with you. It was basically, oh wow, there's an Asian girl, because growing up I was always the only Asian girl or the only Chinese girl. Okay, wait, I messed up. I meant to say the only Asian person or the only Chinese girl, because growing up, if I had Asian classmates, it was like one or two Chinese guys, and I think I also had an Indian female classmate. But growing up, there weren't really any Asian girls in general,
Hmm.
and so when I went to our school and I saw one or two Asian girls, I was so surprised. It was I forgot other Asian people existed. Oh my god.
They exist.
And the NCT sweater
Oh god.
was, I would say, I don't know if I'd call it a bonus, but it was just like an added interest because
Yeah.
I also knew of them and listened to them. I wouldn't say I was a like a NCT stan,
Hmm.
but I liked them. And so I was like, and also I wasn't really sure if your sweater was an NCT sweater or not because I don't really own K-pop merch or merch in general
Hmm.
because, you know, merch is expensive.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so when I saw your sweater, I was one, curious because I wasn't sure if it was that or not. And two, I was like, hey, that that's something.
yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah. And now we're here.
And now we're here.
Aw, that was kind of cute. I'm gonna go cry.
Yeah, we've come we've come far, I guess.
Yeah, we have.
Mhm. With with our friendship and the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw. Now I'm sad. Why am I sad?
Yeah. With the first episode, we had good things to share. We were definitely nervous. I think a lot of people's first videos, first podcasts, first anything would never really be considered like their best.
Yeah.
Because even if it was quote unquote your best, you were still a beginner, you know?
Yeah. Testing the water.
Unless you're one of those people that pretend that you did something for the first time.
Yeah.
It's like if one day you posted a video of a dance you did and you said, "Oh, this is the first time I've ever danced. I learned this in 5 seconds."
I should do that.
Some people do that. And you know what? If that makes them happy, I don't know. But you do you, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I like how this episode kind of came full circle.
yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed this little. I don't know. I guess it was like we remin. I don't know if I would call it a reminiscence because some of those memories were not that great.
Yeah.
But we went from the past and then came back to the present, talked about racism growing up, experiences with in our childhood, and then we got to us meeting each other. Kind of wholesome.
Kinda. This is the most wholesome we've ever been.
Well, at least on recording.
Yeah.
Not for that text conversation.
Oh my gosh. We're not even gonna get there.
That can be a bonus episode if we ever get to the stage of making a Patreon. Well, leave a comment about your first time with racism, parents saying they're proud of you, maybe you accepting that parents being proud of you isn't something that you have to have, for lack of better words. You could talk about the first time you met a person that was from the same culture as you, because maybe you grew up in a all insert race that isn't yours neighborhood, and you felt I guess an outsider. Not to be cheesy, but I felt like an outsider growing up. And if you've been here since episode 1, leave a comment and we'll thank you profusely.
Yes.
Because like we said, it might be the third time, but we've come a long way.
Yeah. If you want to find out more about us, check out the card link in our Instagram bio. It contains links to our streaming platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and more. Follow us for more behind-the-scenes content, announcements, and other random things we decide to put on
here. See you next time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Bye.